Do you think that the Weta advances that you've made are going to be adoptable by other filmmakers?
Yes, I think they will be. Starting with the way Jim built the virtual camera system, I think if you're a filmmaker that wants to work in the digital realm, and especially if you want to be crossing over between digital and live action, that's a great way to work because it's very easy to understand how that process works. Once you pick up a virtual camera and work with it, it's very much like shooting live action. So, you can get over that kind of hump and into the digital world pretty quickly that way. As far as a lot of the behind-the-scenes techniques we developed, I think they'll be very helpful for anyone that needs to create, large-scale scenes, big environments, believable characters. Any of the things that we had to research to accomplish what we did on Avatar, I think will be applicable to a lot of other people doing any similar type of work.
Now, you and I talked for this story I did in Popular Mechanics about the facial capture, which is really the most extraordinary thing, I think, that you've developed here, where these human performances are coming through loud and clear in this amazing way. I mean, there's a moment in this movie, which I don't want to give away, but you'll know what I'm talking about, where one of the Na'vi is holding a human being. Breaks my heart. And there's no way that you're thinking about the fact that that's a CG character at that moment.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
That's an extraordinary thing. Yeah. I mean, did you realize that when you did that scene, that was going to be one of those sort of big moments?
Not really, because you have to take every shot as it comes. Like, they're all, in a way, big shots, because it's a weakest link kind of thing. The film really stands and falls by the quality of the weakest shots. So you can't have any, and so the same effort goes into each one of those shots.
Now, one of the things you did at the very end and saved to the end because it was so incredibly difficult was the final battle.
Yes.
Can you explain in half layman's terms why that was so difficult and why you were afraid of it?
Well, it's not that we were afraid of it, but a lot of the battle happens in the floating mountains. So you have this big, large-scale environment. You have lots of characters and lots of creatures. So before you could jump in and do this whole environment, for example, we just had to do one small part of it and get it to work. So we concentrated on the Banshee rookery, where Jake goes up to wrestle the Banshee and to get his Banshee to learn to fly.
You did that relatively early.
We started that early, but it took a long time to do because there was a lot of things to develop. The Banshees, how they fly, how they look, the floating mountains, the look of the rock, the vegetation, what it looks like when you're looking down below it. All that really had to be figured out first, and we needed to just work all those things through. And then we go from the rookery to Jake actually learning to fly. Now you're among the floating mountains, and you're seeing more things happening. We're building more mountains and kind of extending the world beyond it. So that by the time we got to do the battle, you now have a full repertoire of, we've got mountains that we can put anywhere in the sky. We've got terrain that we could fly over wherever we need to. We can do close-up shots on single characters, or we could do hundreds of characters. So it just takes time to build up your repertoire of knowledge and characters and creatures and background and everything that you need. So you always just try to look at the smallest thing that you can do first that's really going to teach you something, and then branch out from there.
Now, the sequence with the hardware versus the Banshees, what are those machines, CG?
Most of them are, yes. Now, there's some close-up shots, some cockpit shots, both in the amp suit and in some of the helicopters. Those were done as, live action, and then the ships or the vehicles would have been fit around them. But for the most part, once you're seeing anything moving in space, where you've got a wide view of either the amp suit or the helicopters, those would be digital.
Do you think this movie would qualify for submission as an animated feature?
I don't think so, although I don't actually know what the rules are there. I know there's a time, there's an amount of animation that you have to have, and there was certainly a lot of all-digital work in there. But I don't know how as an animated feature, I don't know the rules. If there's any live action, does it not count? I'm not actually sure about that.
What is the percentage of the movie that is in an all CG environment?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm guessing over 50%, but Yeah, I'd have to think about that, 'cause I just saw the cut for the first time 2 nights ago.
Wow.
So
Well, how did that hit you?
oh, it was great. I really enjoyed watching it.
You're not looking at things that don't look right.
No, no, because I already kind of knew where we were with everything, and it's like, yeah, that's no time to think about, do you want to change this or that? It's too late. It's gone.
So you've been doing this a long time. I mean, you did Gollum and you did King Kong. If you could walk us through the sort of elementary version of how Gollum was done with Andy Serkis and the dots and the difference between motion capture and facial capture and animation of the face, and then King Kong, and then this, say
Okay.
Letteri.
Sure. So one of the primary differences is with Gollum and Andy Serkis. Andy was actually on set a lot of the time with, and actually in the photography, with Sam and Frodo. So he was there in a suit, and we had to paint him out and match Gollum's movements to his. So that was all done by hand, because at the time we couldn't motion capture any of that. Later on, we worked out some techniques for some of the things that were done after the fact, where we could put Andy in a suit and motion capture part of it. And even for a few shots on Return of the King, we were able to actually motion capture him right on the set. But the vast majority of it was still actually done with hand animation. And all of the facial animation on Gollum was done completely by hand. There was no way that we could motion capture faces at the time. So that's something that we wanted to do with Kong.